This war is a war. So whether Coinbase wins or loses this technicality, they're winning because they're now on the offensive, making the SEC respond.
In today's video, Attorney John Deaton discussed the latest with the SEC Ripple XRP lawsuit, the recent summary judgments from Ripple and the SEC, and what's next for the procedural process, likelihood of a settlement soon.
We got a response from the SEC related to the Coinbase writ of mandamus. Now, let me just remind you, and I know XRP holders know what a writ of mandamus is because we were the first ones in crypto to ever file one. But what the SEC did 9 months ago was they sent a request to the SEC saying, are you going to give some regulatory clarity and provide some kind of guidance and regulatory rules specifically related to digital assets? And the law requires that the SEC respond to that in a reasonable time. And it's been 9 months. And of course, the judge ordered that the SEC must respond. 9 months go by and the SEC responds with, we may decide to give you regulatory clarity. We may not decide to give you regulatory clarity. It's our choice. Basically, they're claiming, look, we're the executive branch. Well, the agency is part of the executive branch. And judge, you might like the way we do our job. XRP holders may not like the way we do our job. We don't care. This is our prerogative. We're the government. We get to do it the way we want to do it. And even if we're doing a bad job, that's not enough for you to order us. They went back and they cited case law that says, look, 20 years can go by, 30 years can go by, and we don't have to respond. We will decide. And they went further and said that that's right, we're engaging in regulation by enforcement. We're an enforcement agency, and that's what we do. And so that's basically the result we get. Now, another thing that was shocking, well, it's not shocking, but the fact that when you read it, it sounds shocking. They said, oh, by the way, you know all these videos that Gary Gensler does and all his speeches and all his statements when he goes on CNBC or wherever, they don't mean squat. That's basically what they said. The chairman of the SEC, whenever he says it's not guidance, it shouldn't be taken as guidance, and that's that. Deal with it. All right. The same thing we learned through the Hinman emails. Oh, it's just a speech. Oh, it's not a speech. I mean, it's not his personal opinion. It is the opinion of a group of people in the division. They flip-flop every single time. So here's the thing. You got to understand, a writ of mandamus is rarely granted. All right, in where there's discretionary functions. When I filed the writ of mandamus on behalf of the XRP holders, I was basically saying, look, judge, you need to order the SEC to amend the complaint to only allege what they can prove under the law. I knew that, you know, the chances of me actually winning it were slim. I had enough of a basis to argue it, so I did. But what we got was that ruling where the SEC came back and said, hey, look, we're just alleging XRP is a security. We don't know if it is or not. The judge is the one who decides whether our theory is enough. And they did damage here. It doesn't matter if Coinbase technically loses this, because look what the SEC's done. They've come out and said, you can ignore the chairman of the SEC. And so there's two types of courtrooms. There's the courtroom of public opinion, and then there's the courtroom inside with the judge. And this war is a war. So whether Coinbase wins or loses this technicality, they're winning because they're now on the offensive, making the SEC respond.
Many moments along that whole early days of that where we all began to realize, you know, this is much bigger than any of us really understand, right? And I think even today with what we see with Empower Oversight, John, that it may be even bigger than we thought before.
Well, here's the thing, and people need to understand, Empower Oversight is a watchdog about ethics in governments. And so what they did is they noticed they don't own XRP. The president, the CEO, the founder, the agency itself, they don't own XRP. They don't own digital assets at all. They're just into making sure we have ethical government officials. And basically they saw what the XRP community had done. We were called conspiracy theorists. We were called all kinds of things. And they got inspired. And so they sent a FOIA request that said they wanted all the emails between Bill Hinman when he was at the SEC and a whole bunch of people. Well, at first they lied. The SEC lied, said, oh, there are no emails. And then our friends at Empower basically sued and forced them to turn over like 1,200 emails. And from those emails, which is an SEC address, and to the Simpson Thatcher, Hinman's law firm, we learned that Hinman was advised multiple times, you're not allowed to speak to your partners at Simpson Thatcher. You're not allowed to email them. You're not allowed to go to lunch with them. Hell, you're not even allowed to be at the same conference as them because you're an ongoing profit-sharing partner. The better your firm does, the better you do. So stop it. Don't talk to him anymore. And 3 more times from that moment, he still violated those rules. And so Empower is the one that did that. Well, last week, they sued a second lawsuit for the stonewalling because the SEC won't turn over everything. If you look at this, you see names, big names, right? Andreessen, Sam Dixon, Vitalik Buterin, Joe Lubin, all of these individuals that they're just saying, hey, what's going on? We have a right to know how this speech that gave ETH clarity and not other digital assets went down. And so exciting news. It just happened before we went live, Brad, was that Empower Oversight sent a new FOIA request. They sent a new FOIA request to the SEC, basically saying, we recommended that you basically investigate these criminal violations. People need to understand the good work that these folks are doing. And the SEC, why are they fighting this? In this FOIA request by the Empower Oversight, Brad, they don't say potential violations. They don't say potential conflicts of interest. They say, what did you do when we sent evidence to the Inspector General recommending an investigation of violations of the law? That is an independent watchdog organization that said it. Not John Deaton, not Brad Kimes, not Digital Asset Investor, not Crypto Eddie or anybody out there that supports XRP community. That was an independent agency to do that. How powerful is that? There's only one way. There's only one way that you recover and instill confidence. You clean house, you actually do the investigation, and you hold people accountable. It doesn't mean people are going to go to jail, but bring them before an ethics committee, bring them before a judge and prosecute them and send a message that we're not going to let you do this as we move forward. And so that's the only way. If they don't do that, if they take any half-ass measure, they're never going to instill confidence. And people need to understand that the appearance of impropriety, if it rises to the level that it destroys the entire public's confidence in the agency, then it doesn't matter if it's technically bribery or not bribery, or if it's just the traditional revolving door bullshit. You have to restore confidence in the public. And the last thing we'll talk before XRP Vegas, I know that there was another case that we just got dismissed. I found this interesting. And this is someone who was involved with Ethereum. He's the architect of the Ethereum ICO, and it's Stephen Aroff, a lawyer. And I tweeted this out because, you know, I got to tell you, there's a lot of coincidences going on. And listen, I don't know Mr. Nayeroff. I've never sat down and had like a person-to-person conversation with him, but I'm a former federal prosecutor, and I know when decisions are made to indict someone with a felony and you're going to prosecute them, you're pretty confident as a prosecutor that you're going to win unless you have motive that isn't about forcing the law, right? And Mr. Nayeroff, what he basically did is what he's saying, and I've read his motion to dismiss, and the government ended up moving to dismiss their own case. He basically said he was thrown in a van and arrested basically and given a list of names. The same names that you see on that Empower oversight. So this is all coming full circle, right? Names like Vitalik Buterin basically give us the goods. I'm not saying there's goods. I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just telling you what this man put in a federal pleading where he said, I'm thrown in a van. They're saying, we want you to give up information on big, important people. Vitalik Buterin, you know, regardless you think of Vitalik, he's on crypto Mount Rushmore. He came up with Ethereum. And Caitlin Long, who's in her fight. And Naderoff basically said, let's go to trial. Let me tell the critics out there that are watching that say, oh, well, Brad Garlinghouse showed up and that somehow means XRP is a security. There was another guy that showed up that you could say the same thing about Spendabits. Remember him? Jay?
I sure do.
Who uses XRP. He's an actual competitor on a much smaller scale, right? But if Spendabits were to scale, then every allegation made against Ripple in the XRP case could be made against Spendabits. Flare airdrop, right, could be implicated. Sologenic was there. So there are a lot of XRP. I want people to know that, yes, Brad Garlinghouse was a big deal. It would have been a success without him, no doubt about it. And I think, but there were other companies and developers that are on the XRP ledger that are using technology to expand the ecosystem. And some would argue, like me, Brad, that those people, right, XRP Spectre, Spendabits, Sologenic, they're doing more on a day-to-day basis to expand the ecosystem than Ripple, because Ripple's a one-horse ODL pony, if you will. And so I just want to share that because I know there's somebody out there, see that Brad Garlinghouse showed up, that means XRP's a security. Nonsense.